Kyiv-Mogila Academy. And I would like to start our workshop today. Thank you, all of you, for your interest, for your patience, for granting your time to participate, to join our discussions. I believe that our discussions would be very important. They're important for us, but probably they will be important and interesting for all of you. And probably this workshop will help us to arrange next step in our cooperation, in our research, in our educational activities. Actually, idea of this workshop was originated in our Swedish colleagues. So Professor William Hogland made proposals to arrange this event. Professor Hogland from Linnaeus University is working for a long time in the field of applied phytoremediation in some other activities. But these technologies, applications in Ukraine, and we would like to discuss all this issue. So welcome to our event, and I would like to give a floor to Professor William Hogland. William, please.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see you and also have contact with Ukraine. I have had Ukraine as a partner for many years, but I belong to the grown-up generation that give the floor to the women, and we have Uliana here that is, a matter of fact, project leader for this. Please, Uliana, some words.
Thank you. Thank you. I prepared just a short slide presentation to introduce you a little bit to what we are working on this project initiated by William. And I hope you can see the slides. So William and I, we work at Linnaeus University here in Kalmar, Sweden. It's a very young university. It started 2010. So in that sense, we are young, and it's actually, we are not the largest, of course, but we are growing fast as a university. And we would like to thank the University of the National University of Kiev and the Department of Environmental Studies and Victor for inviting to this workshop. And just a few words about the project roots. We are supported by the Swedish Institute, and we are in 5 countries together in the project, together with Estonia, and Poland. And everything, somehow we face more frequently floodings and more frequently this season also wildfires, and of course then military action and the war going on in Ukraine, not far from here. So again, the Baltic Sea is one of the most polluted seas in the world, and so when it comes to sustainable management, we are working together or William has worked together with many of the Baltic countries and other countries to look at more efficient management. We are a small region. We share not so much languages, but we share cultural interest, and also, of course, trade is one of the most things that are exchanged. But within the project, we are creating guidelines of best practices when it comes to phytoremediation, which is a cost-effective method to clean the soil and sediment and water, and to a certain extent air as well. So we are arranging for this year now seminars and course materials, and like also activities like this workshop. So I would like to thank you all for taking your time and participating today. And please, in the chat, write your name, and if you're a student or connected to another university, and if you want also your contact information, because we want to increase then the network and the possibility for this to be a sustainable
Thank you very much, Uliana. And
Yes.
I would like to invite Professor Hogland to deliver your presentation.
Yeah.
William, you have the floor.
Thank you. Maybe I didn't present myself properly. I'm William Hogland, and I am professor in environmental engineering and recovery. And my focus is on urban water management and also later waste management. So I established waste management as academic subject for in the end of the 1980s. And today, waste management is universities today. And I have been in Ukraine several times during the last 2 decades and have a cooperation in the area of phytoremediation. I must say also that the ideas about phytoremediation is coming from Ukraine from the beginning here. So today I will talk about practices of soil reclamation by phytoremediation technologies. And we use plants to clean up air, water, and soil. And you know that you see in nature how good nature is on cleaning up. If we leave the earth in up very soon again. And we need also to have use of plants in urban areas to clean up from cars and smoke and so on. So during the last decades, we have put flowers and plants on the walls and on the roofs of the buildings, and also cleaning of the air indoors. And it will be more and more interesting and so on. I don't know if you heard on the news that a building that is 2 kilometers high that will be erected. I have been in Shanghai. There you have been in a building that was about 700 meters, and the building was moving, and you could feel it. It moved on the top 1 meter. And here you can see, even at Linnaeus University, we use plants for air cleaning, but also a decoration like this. And this is very common in hotels and so on today. And I said that we started here with cooperation with Ukraine. In the summer 2007, I had a whole group of Ukrainian teachers and students working with phytoremediation. And here you can see to the left a Ukrainian student working together with a Brazilian student. And here you can see how a plant works you can see the uptake of oil in the tissues and so on. You clearly see this, and also how roots develop. The roots up there, you could see on the under A that under A the root is developed in normal soil concentration. To the right, you have a little bit more oil in, and you can see if you have just a little oil, the roots develop a little bit better. But if it comes up to about 3% or something like that, then you get problem and it dies. And you see also, if we are talking about the remediation, the root length is very important, and different plants have different root system and how it act in cooperation with the bacteria in the soil, and also together with the pH and so on in the soil. And here you can see that we have such a nice wetland in outside Kalmar that treat water from the airfield, where you have a lot of PFAS in, and also from my industry area that we use wetlands and plants. And here you can see the first cooperation I had with Professor Felix from Ukraine. And today is an important breeding place for different fishes and so on. So it's also important for the Baltic Sea. And here you can see to the right, wetlands and so on. That is very important in Sweden. And up to 1995, the government gave money to make ditches to drain these wetlands. Today we spend over 200 million Swedish crowns for implement new wetlands, because it's so important and in the landscape. And in general, you can see how a plant works. If we start with the root system, you have what we call phytostabilization. Pollutant is immobilized in the soil. We also can have phytostimulation, so the activity between bacteria around the roots and the roots itself can be stimulated, so they break down but also take up pollutants in a better way. We talk also about phytoextraction. Pollutant is accumulated in the plant, perhaps in the leaves and so on, so we can harvest the plant. And the best way to take care of the plants is probably to incinerate it together with waste, and then the metals goes into the ash. We also talk about phytovolatilization, and when pollutants are released into volatile forms from the leaves and so on. And we can also have some phytodegradation. I will not go into detail on this because I believe that other speakers today will talk about that. Yeah, we have a lot of different plants, and we know what they are good on. For instance, birch here, pash. You have other here a whole list of different plants and what they are good at. So when you use phytoremediation, you must select the best plants for your pollutant situation, please. And I have worked with protection of water resources, and I think that is very important for you, that you protect the water resources, potential drinking water resources, drinking water wells, and so on. Here you can see in Turkey, they have a big lake here that is threatened, of course, by the urbanization, but in the back or in the front here, they have a big landfill that leachate to this potential source of drinking water. So this we must remember to protect. So therefore we are talking about buffer zones and so on. So here you can see from road, here you have a buffer zones with sunflowers, and we have also a small here alfalfa in between. And those can also be of interest for insects and bees and so on. So can be important for the pollination here. And I think this is something you shall think about a little bit in Ukraine, if you can reduce the pollutants from polluted fields and so on, and protect water resources. And we are obligated to have such zones around the agricultural areas to reduce the leakage of nutrients to the Baltic Sea via ditches and rivers and so on. But we must activate the farmers better and motivate them to use it. We have worked a lot with the landfills and the leachate, and here we have also used wetlands and plants to treat the leachate, and created small rivulets on the landfill with the aeration and of the leachate to treat it, and sedimentation and so on. And today it is a famous tourist area for citizens to make mountain biking, walking, bird watching, looking at insects and so on, and also a barbecue area. So we have differentiation. Here you have phytoremediation. It's included plants for stabilization, assimilation, and so on. Can read yourself here. And you have different technologies here on in situ and ex situ. And if possible, you shall use in situ methods, because to transport the pollutants in, for instance, in urban areas and so on, it's spread around, and every person get a little bit a dose of the pollutants and so on. So it's better to make it on site if possible. Yes, and I mean, I'm sure you have this bad situation, as we see to the left here. We have a lot of catastrophes, and we also have demolition waste. To the right, we have the situation outside our windows. Here they are erecting a new hotel. But how to sort, recycle, and store this waste? And you have a similar situation, I think. How I think you can't store and recycle it directly, so or sort it directly. So you must store it, but then you must store it so you can use it for coming generation. It's important. So therefore, I have developed what we call bank account cells. So such material or material and ashes and so on that you can't in an economic way recycle today, you put on the landfill in certain cell, and then you can say to your children and grandchildren, if you find a method for recovery of copper, for instance, in economic well, then you go to this place and do it. So it is a bank account for your grandchildren. And also we use the top of the landfill for treatment. We irrigate then, for instance, salix on top and with leachate and let it infiltrate into the landfill. Here you can see that we use salix here on the landfill. In the beginning, we used top sprinkles to irrigate here and to have a high evaporation and so on. But then we found that the aerosols are spread around, so it's better with drop irrigation here to make it safe. And here you can see also how we take care of the water from a landfill, leachate from a landfill. First, we irrigate it over a clear cutting area for trees, and then it goes through such macadam or single and sand filters, and then into ponds. And then we have 5 such ponds like this, and then we have reeds here as a filter, and then we let it out in to a forest ditch. And we are living in the kingdom of crystal. It means that we have had a lot of crystal or glass factories in the region. And my ancestors, 3 generations, have worked with glass factoring and so on. And now I have coming there, try to clean up after them. And you see here in the colorful glass, red and yellow and orange and so on. Then you have cadmium there, and in the crystal glass you have lead and so on. And then we have developed methods how to take out the metals here. And I have 2 doctors educated in this area. And here is the remediation also, how we shall make. And here, I think it's not good that we are taking away, excavate it, and take it to the landfill and mix it with hazardous waste. When we have mixed it with hazardous waste, it's impossible to recover the glass. You shall recover the glass and the metals instead. So we try to make something good of the polluted areas. So we built a tourist or phytoremediation park, and we have had this cooperation with the Baltic countries. So we built this park, and you can see this building in the center. There you have open air glass factories. So there we invite artists from the whole world to come and test making glass and so on. And then they can walk around in this earlier polluted area. And yeah, you believe that natural material as wood and so on can't pollute. But you see here, we have a storage area of wood chips from oak. And there you see it's totally black runoff there. And when it goes into the river and so on, it will be dark and affect the photosynthesis. And here you can see the color you get on the water when you have different types of wood chips here, oak, pine, and beech, maple. And here you can also see the color is different during different snowmelt events, from very clear and so on to very dark. This is during a snowmelt event. And it's just that you look at the color, but you can also see the difference in pollutant concentration. And here we have developed a system, wetland system, with sedimentation, aeration, and then the wetland and sedimentation in the end. And then we implemented in full scale, as you see to the right. And it ended up in a PhD thesis by Henry Svensson. Here you can see the final when we have implemented the wetland. And you must, of course, characterize the sediments and the surface water. You take the sediment and you have physical things that you shall estimate: particle size, water content, organics. You have the chemicals, nutrients, metals, and organics. And surface water, turbidity and conductivity is very important. Chemical point of view, COD, pH, and nutrients. And here you can see the leachate from the landfill again, going through the filters and the reed beds, and also sedimentation in the ponds. And you can see the outlet here and to the forest ditch. And the interesting thing is that if you look at the nutrients coming out from that pipe, is very little. And if we go down in this ditch later, closer to the river, you have increased the nutrients again. It's coming from forest and the agricultural land. So you have a leakage from agricultural land and forest of nutrients. Here you have different system. Here for treatment with plants, you have this floating system with water hyacinths and so on, duckweeds. And then you have a free water surface wetland where you have cattails, for instance, growing in the bottom sediment. And also the microorganism on the leaves helps also to treat the water. And then in the end, then you have a subreactive flow system of the wetland when you have the plants in soil, and then you lead the water underneath in the soil. So we have different, you can find in literature a lot of such technologies. Yes, and we pollute also the farmland and so on. In Europe here we have used sludge on agricultural areas, and now we are discussing, and even the European Union discuss, can we grow plants here or food in these agricultural lands that we have for decades irrigated with sludge and so on. And there also we maybe need remediation for some years with plants to make it to a good farmland again. You have also the spraying with pesticides, but also now we have flooding from urban areas. You have heard about what happens in Europe, Spain, and in Poland. You had 4 meters of water on the streets. Then you wash the whole city, and it comes into farmlands. And here again, we can have these buffer zones to protect the farmland. We have also worked with the bottom sediment in the lagoons or the bays in Kalmar. It's beautiful water mirrors that give a special atmosphere in the city. But you see here, during the eutrophication period or the blooming period, you see it will be very dirty, and that fall to the bottom, and we must take it away. And can we take it away and use it for something? So we have developed here underwater robot that goes almost like a vacuum cleaner on the bottom of the bay to pick up the sediments. And then we take it to land, let it sediment, and also we dewater it in such a geo bags there. We put then polymers there to increase the watering. And then you got a sediment that you see to the right. How can we use this sediment? It's a lot of nutrients in it. And we have tried to go to the greenhouse and test it here and make salad of it. The salad looks tasty and healthy. The question is it healthy? And sometimes it can be problem with cadmium and arsenic and so on. And we work together with a medical doctor here that work with all types of cereals that can stand dry periods better, and it can also stand sickness and so on that can appear on the cereals and so on. So it's nice to work with a medical doctor in this area, and these cereals and could be used also in the stripes. But it's not so easy. You can get sickness, fungus, you can get then snails and other animals eating on the plants and so on, and also the ears, for instance, and can destroy your plant. And then you have invasive plants as lupins and so on. So you must be careful. The road administration in Sweden used these lupins along the roads and so on, but they were spreading out into the forest, and they have to stop this. So be careful with the type of plants you choose, and as you need to talk to the plants in your house, it's very important that you talk also with your remediation plants. And thank you very much. And now we shall learn some Swedish. Tack ska ni ha, which means thank you very much. Tack ska ni ha. Thank you. And here you can see the Öland Bridge over to the island I live on.
Thank you very much, William. I'm familiar with your work and with your publications, but I'm impressed with your experience. Amazing. Dear colleagues, we have a chance to ask some questions, Professor William. Please, who have questions? William, could you say a little bit more about if you are using plants for phytoremediation of, let's say, soil polluted by metals? What is the process of treatment of biomass which accumulated such metals? How to treat and how to get this components which
it's a very important question you are putting here, and this comes always. I mean, you can't destroy the metals and so on, and it's uptake of the plants. And first of all, the question is, how shall we harvest the plants? If you have a sunflower, for instance, of course you can cut it with a machine and so on, but the question is, can you use the flower and the seeds and you make oils of it? Can you eat the seeds from the top? And if it's possible, I mean, then you shall maybe cut the top first and take it for food production and so on. And you can have the pollutants in the stalk and in the leaves, and maybe you have a lot of pollutants also in the root. And in the case you have it in the roots, then you shall harvest the whole plant with the roots to take as much pollutants as possible. Then of course you have pollutants there, and the best way is when you have metals and so on, it can be to take it to be, then you come in, the metals goes into the ash from the incinerator, and then you have a high metals in the ash, and then you can start to recover it. But you must increase the concentration in order to make it economic benefits you. We had some more there.
Okay, thank you. Ruslan.
Ruslan.
Sorry, William. Ruslan, please, your question.
Thank you, Victor Ivанович. I would like to say thanks to William because it was very impressive and comprehensive overview of phytoremediation activities. It's very interesting, and I think it's very useful for Ukrainian partners as well. And we need your experience. We need to implement your experience, William, in Ukraine. And regarding this, I would like to ask you if you have experience to implement phytoremediation methods on big oil polluted soil, and I would like to say big oil polluted ecosystem, not only soil, sediment, groundwater, and water bodies.
Yeah. A matter of fact, I produced, or if you can say produced, but you saw the girl or woman there that was holding the sunflower, Charlotte Marchand. She became doctor in this, so she looked upon the uptake or the treatment of oil polluted soil. She worked with it was a leaking oil tank, and then she excavated the soil around there, and we in different methods she used among that sunflowers and also alfalfa, lucerne, and so on. And there exists doctoral thesis in this area, and I think you can find it on the net. It's Charlotte Marchand. That if you write me an email, I shall give you the right title of the thesis.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
If you please, if you be so kind, if it's possible. I have the question, dear William, it was very impressive indeed. And I was very interested about the manipulation of oak extraction, as I correctly understood. What's about this slide? I don't actually remember which one, but as I correctly understood, it was some extraction of some trees, oak, pine, etc., and some and as I correctly understood it, for the clean up the water.
Up. No, not.
It's just only,
Wait.
it's not problem, but yeah, it was very interesting for me.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
So what was your question? You said once more.
It's for what actually it is. It's like extraction of what? Oak, pine. It's for which manipulation? How it is working actually?
The district heater, you need wood chips too. Up in the left corner, you can see a yellow pile there, and it's wood chips there, yes. And then you have leachate coming from the wood chips. And to the right, you see, when you have a pile, same there, yes. There you can see a heap of wood chips from oak tree. And then when it rains there, it's leaking black water. And that goes out to the ditches and the river system, and that destroys the water. And oak is very toxic. I mean, an oak tree can stand for 1,000 years or something. So it's very toxic for insects and so on, and fungus and other. And this is coming out here, and each tree has a different types of leakage. And then in the next picture there, you have we put oak, pine, and beech and maple in water, ordinary drinking water, and then you see after a while the color that change. And then to the right, you can see how the stormwater quality vary during a snowmelt area, just in color. Just to see the difference in color, you see it perhaps in a pedagogical way like this, but then you can go in and look up on the different concentration of different pollutants, how it's vary in time. You have pH, conductivity, and the COD and so on. So it's a way to analyze how it is, and then you need to know the shock, how it's coming. Maybe you don't need to treat all the water if you have a complicated or expensive treatment. Maybe the first part is not necessary to treat and so on. Then you can modify your treatment system dependent on what you know about your water.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, William. Let's go according to our program. Probably at the end we will have discussions and somebody who would like to ask more questions. So please wait for the end of this workshop. Next presentation I put myself. Probably it's not correct, but I would like to talk to the issue which are actually targets of applications of phytoremediation technologies. And my presentation would be not so optimistic and so saturated with experience. On February 12th, I woke up around 4 o'clock and time later I heard powerful explosions to the window and saw an explosion of black smoke in the darkness behind the buildings. And after 5 o'clock, it began to get light, and it was visible that smoke was pouring from somewhere. And this smoke began to subside only around 9 in the morning. Later, it became known that attack by Russian drones on Kyiv caused several destructions. The targets were warehouses, office, and public buildings. One person died. I started my presentation with this incident to show our everyday reality. Actually, it's not necessary to convince my Ukrainian colleagues, but for foreigners, probably it gives more light on our life. I would say that there are thousands of such incidents, and they have occurred throughout Ukraine every day. And as a result, we have over 100,000 deaths, a ruined economy, a damaged infrastructure, and devastating and sometimes catastrophic consequences for the environment. And situation is more dire in the frontline regions. I saw among our participants representatives from Mykolaiv and other southern regions, which are every day under shelling, under bombing. And I will talk about the impact of military operations on the environment, on water bodies, land surface, and soil. And my presentation would be rather general than specific and with specific results. And I will start with descriptions of impact factors, driving forces of military activities on environment. And these factors include at least two sets: military actions and supporting of combat operations. And military actions comprise different activities listed on this slide. And I think that the most influential are combat actions, namely shellings, bombing, missile attacks, etc. But all other as well is very important to give such sad results for people, infrastructure, and environment. The object of our activity, of such military activity, is the entire territory of Ukraine, but the greater intensity is usually observed in the frontline zone. These maps on these slides show the occupied territories, and some front lines. The left map. The map on the right shows the areas that needs to be surveyed, demined, and cleared of dangerous remnant. And actually, as far as entire Ukraine under target of Russian Federations, we may find damages and incidents throughout the Ukraine. The intensity of hostilities and therefore the environmental impact can be judged by the amount of ammunition used. There is no such data, but indirect estimates can be made. Deputy Commander of the Missile Forces and Artillery of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Sergei Musyenko, in his interview provided data on the number of shells used by Ukrainian defense forces. And for example, on these slides, you may see that in 2023, we used over 3 million shells, and more than half of them are 55 shells. Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, in his interview, provided accurate data times more, 625 shells. And we understand that all these shells fell on the territory, on settlements, infrastructure, agricultural fields, natural zones. And our estimates shows just very, very indirect estimate shows that in this very short period of August 2024, environmental pressure amounted to 23,348 tons of metal and explosives. And this happened only during 9 days. We can only imagine the scale of the entire impact on the environment during the period of hostilities. And the results of such hostilities include physical damages up to complete destructions of landscapes, natural and man-made ecosystems, includes pollution by munitions, explosion products, remnants of such munitions, and destroyed military equipment, substances from destroyed industrial units, etc., with a severe impact on air, soil, and water. And such impact includes fires and destructions of ecosystems and indirect long-term consequences. As far as we cannot cover all incidents, we just selected a few sites around the Kyiv, and our research and monitoring activities focused on the territories suffered from hostilities. And these territories includes Drevyansky natural reserves, Kyiv region hotspots, which are oil depots, Krechki and Kalinivka, Moshchun village, Buda-Babanetska missile attack consequences, Irpin river data, and some other. I put on this map as well Mizhorichinski regional landscape park. There were no military activities on this area, but there was a huge fire in 2020s, and we continue monitoring this area, which are very similar to those in another part of our in other parts of territories. From the very first days of Russian military interventions in Ukraine, oil and fuel infrastructure facilities became one of the key targets of missile attacks. And during February and May 2022, Russia affected or destroyed many units, such like 34 oil depots, 4 refineries, 7 gas stations, and probably some more oil warehouses. And one of these hotspots is Kalinivka oil depot, where over 10,000 tons of fuel burned out after missile attack. We have assessed the impact on the atmosphere, and these results are published in paper which I presented on this slide. We have assessed as well pollution of the agricultural area affected by the fire, and we found that pollution of hydrocarbons increase permissible maximum concentrations in many times. And we continue monitoring this area because we don't have opportunities to use remediation technologies for some reasons. We are monitoring as well near this oil depot the state of pollution of underground and surface water by oil products. And this is very sad component of our activities because surface waters were used by local populations as a resort area. And I presented as well some references to our publications about results of such monitoring. But this is very small case, as a case study, and we use this case study to understand how consequences of military activities impact and going on in this area. But speaking about entire Ukraine, we know that a lot of water bodies were suffered from military activities. And I would just present 2 files describing impact on water resources, which includes number of destructions of hydraulic facilities resulted in flooding and the drainage of the territories. It's not full list of such incidents. I didn't include Kakhovka incidents, which require special attentions and special descriptions. I included on this slide, I included incidents related to damage of wastewater treatment facilities. Many cities which were attacked by Russian Federations resulted in damages wastewater treatment facilities. And you can imagine what may happen in this case. A lot of untreated communal water entered into surface streams of Ukraine. Another consequences of such attack relates to physical damages of landscapes and natural ecosystems. And we have one of such objects, some of such units, which includes forest near village Budovo-Benetska in Kyiv region, which suffered from missile attack in February 2024. We are monitoring as well restoration of the anthropogenic ecosystem in the territory of the Moshun village in Kyiv Oblast, and forest of this village, which was destroyed in March 2022. Moshun is one of the villages which was almost fully deteriorated, and you may see two pictures on the left top demonstrating this village before and after hostilities in March 2022. Another object of our interest is physical damages of landscape and natural ecosystems related to to processes of restorations of anthropogenic ecosystem on the territory of the destroyed Ozernyansky quarry in Kyiv region. The rise destructions of the hydraulic structure of the Irpin River has increased the flooding of the quarry, and its restoration and operations are currently very expensive and economically unprofitable. And this is an example of indirect and long-term consequences. But on the other hand, it's an object of monitoring of successions of new ecosystem. Hostilities and fighting caused massive fires in natural systems in almost all regions where it's happened, where fighting took place. In March 2022, more than 2,000 hectares of protected forest burned in Drevlyansky Natural Park. This is the only case among many others. Access to this area is still closed due to mining and ammunition remnants. Therefore, we are assessing the impact on the forest ecosystem using satellite monitoring data. And we published some results of this research in scientific publications. The main challenge at this moment for us is to overcome the consequences of the war and to ensure the green recovery of natural territories and the anthropogenic environment to an ecologically acceptable state. But we have many other challenges before overcoming this main challenge. And these challenges include restricted access to the hotspots because territories should be demined, cleaned, and open for peaceful use. We have lack of resources. We are lacking resources for research, for monitoring, for remediation. We are lacking data for the assessment just because investigations of the incidents, which is running by the General Prosecutor's Office, restricted access to the related data. And what is the most important and most terrible, hostilities and air attacks by Russian Federation military forces multiply incidents and create new hot spots. And therefore, we focused our efforts on assessing and monitoring accessible sites and hotspots, and mainly are observing how the nature recover the damages caused. Because nature, as Barry Commoner has argued, knows best. And I would be very glad if you will consider these problems and you will join in our research and our monitoring and our further remediation activities in these efforts and in our striving to clean and to recover our environment and our life to ecologically accepted states. Thank you for your attention. Maybe somebody has some questions, so please. In other case, I will give the floor to next presenter.
Yes, perhaps some comments here. First of all, I'm impressed that you can be in good mood and live under such conditions and so on. And we are following very much on TV, and also that you have sympathies from the European countries, and in particular Sweden, I should say. And I think it's very important that you go on with your daily life. I think it's impressive that you are with us on such an important seminar that we have today. I think to have this communication, I think it's very very important. You have sports athletes all over the world that showing up and show up your country and so on. And for us, this is very impressive. And also now it's important that you follow up, but have similar situations in too many countries in the world. And if it's not war, you have also catastrophes of different kind, forest fires, you have dry periods and so on, and now also the flooding and so on that also pollute areas. Some of your colleagues, and there we highlighted these catastrophes, and we must fight them, and we will have more of these because of the climate change. We can in Sweden are gives problem. We have all the Himalaya area. I worked up in Himalaya, taking PhD courses, giving that up there, and there take the drinking water from the Himalaya area, and it will give problems and so on. And so it's very important here that we learn more about the catastrophes and how we can handle this. And I believe that the phytoremediation can be help here for treatment of the soil and so on. And I have asked Victor here to give these hotspots and that we could have some test areas with phytoremediation on some of the spots. But of course, it's difficult to make this in big scale. We do it in laboratory scale and in small plots and so on. But how to make it in big fields and also get it economic beneficial and so on. But it's necessary for you to clean up the soils with plants. For instance, Uliana work here with lavendel, for instance, and you can have a beautiful lavendel field for some years to clean up agricultural area, perhaps. You can use sunflowers and so on. So let's work on this and try to learn more, because it's not just for war situation, it's also for all the catastrophes that happens all over the world and so on. So we follow you and we support you in the best way we can do, I hope. So let's continue with the hard work with phytoremediation and how we can use it as these stripes that along to protect drinking water resources and so on. And you know best how to handle these problems. So it's very important for the future to other catastrophe areas to note down the information and give it to other people. Thank you.
Okay, William. Thank you very much. Let's discuss after all presentations. We need, and we have what to discuss. Now I would like to invite Professor Max Hagblom from United States. Dear Max, thank you very much, because I know for your for being with us, because I know that now it's night in the United States and you are with us. Thank you very much. So please, you have a floor. Unmute, please, your microphone.
Okay. Well, thank you, Victor, very much for the invitation to join with you today, and thank you for immense humanitarian and environmental devastation that Ukraine is suffering. And again, I think it's quite difficult to continue in remediation. I think from what you presented, it's also clear that the remediation and so just to check, you're seeing my full screen presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the work that I want to get into on the microbial systems was triggered really by issues relating to the New York, New Jersey harbor estuary, which of course around the major cities, New York and other towns, and the major port is also quite heavily polluted from a lot of industrial activities. I mean, DDT, petroleum hydrocarbons, dioxins, or so on. And we've been interested at Rutgers for can respond to anthropogenic disturbance, and the key question that we as microbiologists are trying to figure out is how does a toxic chemical become food for a microorganism? What are the evolutionary steps that are needed for developing new degradation pathways? What's the ecology of the organism, where it's active? And again, with that understanding, how can we exploit microbial activities for waste treatment and remediation of different contaminated sites? I'm going to focus in on a set of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that are mainly petroleum derived, but they also come up in many different instances and problems. And again, some of the work that we've looked at and how microbes degrade these group of chemicals. My lab is also very interested in the chlorinated pollutants, the PCBs and the dioxins. And this is, of course, the dioxins are a legacy of another war from the 1970s and the use as a defoliant in the Vietnam War. And actually, the chlorinated dioxins that were spread in Vietnam were made quite close to Rutgers University in New Jersey. So it's, again, the knowledge of the production and use and devastation elsewhere is quite apparent to us. So what I want to get into is providing a little bit some of the background of how one can study and demonstrate the microbial processes that can be used to degrade or stabilize, detoxify pollutants, and how that knowledge then can get into developing more site-specific technologies, both to enhance degradation, but also the important aspect of monitoring what's happening. How do we know that a site is being cleaned up? What are the steps and information that we want to collect? And again, how is that then combined with other approaches? I mean, a lot of engineering that's needed as well. As a microbiologist, as a microbial ecologist, my basic questions are always who, what, when, and where. What are the ways that we can figure out who is active under which conditions? And of course, then the application is in remediation. Now, a lot of the discussion today is focused around phytoremediation. And this is, of course, for a microbiologist, is a very interesting host microbiome interaction. And what's happening in the rhizosphere important, and its role is in stimulating immense microbial activity in the rhizosphere. Can be orders of magnitude. And so what we want to understand, what is the microbial activity that is stimulated in soil by plants? Again, higher overall activity, higher cell numbers, that is driven often by the release of a variety of plant organic compounds into the soil that stimulates microbial growth. But again, can we get into more understanding of specific mechanisms, their differences between plants and so on, but also into then aspects of how does this stimulation result in more efficient degradation of hydrocarbons or munition waste or so on. And that requires then a much, much more detailed understanding of which specific microbes are stimulated and how. So again, this is a slide you saw before from Dr. Holland's presentation, again, from a wonderful review on phytoremediation from a few years ago. And again, what I will be talking about is very much focusing here on this stimulation activity that plants are active in. Where we focused in on here and this is a couple of projects from a few years ago, was in trying to understand the microbes involved in degradation of PAHs and other pollutants in two major salt marsh plants. So Spartina alterniflora, Phragmites australis, these are worldwide salt marsh plants and quite prevalent in the New York Harbor estuary. And we wanted to understand the role of rhizosphere microorganisms in degradation of these PAHs and evaluate the importance of plant microbial associations. And could we then also use this information to either develop or optimize a plant microbial technology for remediation of contaminated sediments and dredge spoils? So here, this was driven really by the need to dredge the harbor channels for maintaining the shipping channels. But then the question is, what do you do with these contaminated sediments? How do you dispose of them? And could we then come up with a remediation technology? The other aspect that comes in is the importance of the salt marshes in this highly anthropogenic environment in serving as buffer zones and be important for degradation of pollutants in the waterway. And this is one of our study sites in the harbor where we have Spartina alterniflora salt marsh. And just an example of some of the data we collected to demonstrate enhanced degradation. So basically looking at this tidal transect, this is at low tide, where we sampled from the salt marsh rhizosphere as well as from the mud flats, and then did a simple most probable number evaluation of the number of PAH degrading bacteria in these different sites. And just from these numbers, you can see here clearly that in the salt marsh rhizosphere, we have a couple of orders of magnitude more PAH degrading bacteria than in the mudflats. So there's something that Spartina is providing an enhancement and improving the growth of degraders. And that can also be shown then in the evidence for mineralization. So again, what we want to demonstrate not only is a pollutant like phenanthrene being removed from the soil, but it's actually completely degraded to carbon dioxide. And how that's typically done in the laboratory very efficiently is you can add a case 14C phenanthrene to microcosms, again set up along this from samples from the same transect, and you can see that in the mudflats with lower degraders, we also see lower extent of mineralization compared to the cultures established with samples from the Spartina rhizosphere. So again, more efficient mineralization of this one model pollutant chemical. We've done other work with tetrabromobisphenol A. This is an important flame retardant, and again showed very much the same kind of a stimulation. In this case, where we have Spartina rhizosphere, this is the amount of BPA that's formed. In this case, this is a different type of a process where organohalide respiring bacteria remove the bromines from the aromatic structure, and in this case create bisphenol A that we don't see further degradation of. But again, this is an important initial step in degradation, this dehalogenation. And we can again see that, yes, in Spartina or Phragmites rhizospheres, this dehalogenation is stimulated. So another example of the stimulatory effects of the salt marsh plants. Now, as microbiologists, we wanted to figure out who's doing it and what are some of the processes involved. And so we took a very classical approach, going into our sites, taking back some roots, and then setting up classical enrichment cultures where we're providing the pollutant of interest, in this case, pH, as the of what we had and came up with. Again, a number of groups in the gram-positive bacillus group, Paenibacillus. We have nocardioforms as well as Pseudomonas at this time were, of course, well known for their biodegradative capability. The Paenibacillus group and other bacilli, but now there's increasing in degrading a range of pollutants, showing a couple of isolates and their ability to degrade compounds, naphthalene, biphenyl, fluorine, phenanthrene, pyrene. Again, the percent remaining after time. And we can, of course, see here that basically pyrene is one of the problem pollutants, even when we have an isolate that can degrade some of the simpler PAHs. Pyrene very often accumulates, but we can see that there are a couple that also have a small appetite for pyrene. We ended up isolating a novel species that we named Paenibacillus naphthalenovorans, again, using naphthalene as a carbon source, and we could then see that this appeared to be quite prevalent in different salt marsh habitats. And so again, adding to our knowledge of the organisms involved in degradation. Isolates are of interest, of course, to understand the mechanisms, the processes. Now with the genomics and genetic tools, we can learn easily very much about the mechanisms involved in degradation that are important for both enhancement and monitoring. But isolates can also be very useful in bioaugmentation technologies. So if you have contaminated soils with low numbers of degraders, there just hasn't been the selection and evolution of an active population. Proper isolates can also be used to seed the site. And here is just an example of an experiment where we added either Paenibacillus or an Arthropacter isolates to a sediment slurry and monitored, in this case, the degradation of pyrene. And we can see in the non-inoculated sediments or in sterile controls, there's no loss of pyrene over, in this case, about a 2-month experimental period. But adding these PAH degraders to the sediment could drastically improve degradation with almost 90% loss over that same time. So again, having a selection of isolates that can be used and will then survive in the particular environment is going to be one of the potential tools for remediation. We also tried our work on looking at lab scale and pilot scale bioreactors to treat sediment slurries. And again, here our thinking is how could we stimulate microbial activity combined with plants in essentially a hydroponic system. So we had large and small tanks, so small beakers in the lab to these 500-liter tanks in a greenhouse, to which we then either seeded microorganisms in combination or without Spartina alterniflora growing then in a hydroponic setting. And we can see in these pilot scale reactors, we see quite active degradation of ace-naphthalene, phenanthrene, also pyrene, again with loss seen over a number of days and months. Again, whether it was with or without plants, we could see that actually just the aeration, the stimulation of key nutrient was actually all that was needed for degradation. And again, just some of the detailed data showing loss of some of the key PAHs, phenanthrene and pyrene, and also showing that in these systems with aeration, we can see orders of magnitude increase in the number of PAH degrading bacteria. So again, an example of how to monitor this type of a stimulation to show that the activity we want is actually occurring. So to summarize in here, with salt marsh and other marsh plants bacteria. These plant-associated microorganisms may actually remediation of contaminated sediments and wetland. Many one way. So we're really thinking back in terms of how do we use our knowledge for designing with nature. So again, the evolution, the selection of strains with new biodegradation capabilities. There's, of course, a lot of work in genetic engineering and assembly of novel biodegradation pathways, more as a research tool because there's issues with use of these in the environment, but very important for understanding the process. But really where I think is how do we manipulate microbial in communities for enhanced degradation? How do we use our detailed knowledge of what organisms is stimulated under which conditions so that we can actually get our desired outcome? And again, linking microbiology with engineering environmental science principles then for bioremediation. Again, just want to acknowledge a number of my former postdocs, Laurie Dane, Lauren Launen, student Beth Ravitt, who did a lot of the work, and several others in the lab over the years. And happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Professor Häggblom. Thank you very much, Professor Häggblom. Not everything can.
If you don't mind, thank you so very much for your presentation, and I'm very interesting. I was working a little bit on PCB's topic, and not the phytoremediation, but just only first steps, the bioaccumulation. And it was very, for me, it was in Ukraine, the degradation of PCB due to your results, due to your techniques. And maybe it should be applied in the Ukrainian territories.
Yeah, well, again, this is PCBs are an example of the focus on details, and it depends on how many chlorines you have on the PCB molecule. So if there's 1 or 2 chlorines, then the same bacteria that here degrade PAHs can be very good at introducing oxygen to the aromatic ring. So a dioxygenase attack is commonplace for that's a common mechanism for all of these pollutants. And that works with if there's only 1 or 2 chlorines on the biphenyl ring. When you have more, which is the most commonplace, 4, 5 or more, then the steric hindrance actually shuts down the dioxygenase attack. But interestingly, there's a completely different group of microorganisms that breathe using PCBs or other chlorinated compounds. So in this case, the PCB can serve as the terminal electron acceptor in respiration. So instead of oxygen, they will reductively chlorine bond, and that's coupled to generating proton motive force, and they respire. And that, of course, doesn't degrade the structure, but it removes the chlorines, which is the major problem. And there's been data showing that you can actually combine the anaerobic dechlorination with subsequent aerobic attack to get almost complete degradation of PCBs. But these are two actually incompatible microbial processes. The dechlorinators are strict anaerobes. They're killed by oxygen, versus the aerobic PAH degraders require molecular oxygen to be active. So we need to think of how to, in time, separate these activities and these populations. But no, this is again an example of how to sort of, why we need to know what is the process, what's the organism, and what conditions it's like. But no, this is a very interesting microbiological question, and of course, really important for site remediation as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Max, I know that microorganisms are very fragile objects. When you are using isolates of some strains, and they demonstrate very appropriate, very nice activities in terms of biodegradations. But what is your experience shows associated cultures more active or separate individual organisms are demonstrating more better results in terms of biodegradations?
Complex consortia, obviously. I mean, pure cultures are fun to work with in the laboratory. They're an important research tool to understand the mechanisms, but microbes in a soil, in a sediment, function in a community.
Yeah.
And it becomes very obvious that they need each other. One organism makes a vitamin that the other needs, and these become very, very complex, very intriguing ecological interactions that are quite complicated to figure out. But it's very evident that no, this pure culture of degraders, yes, you can sometimes seed it into the soil, but whether it survives or not actually depends on the interaction that it will form with other microorganisms.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Thank you very much, Professor Hegel.
Well, thank you. No, again, thank you for allowing me to join you today in this important topic.
Thank you very much.
A question.
Sure, Irina.
I wonder here about the texture of the soil. I mean, I was working with the fine sediments in the bottom sediments and so on in the bay. How important is the texture for how the bacteria are working and the microorganisms are working and the environment?
So it's not a question that my laboratory has specifically focused in on, but texture, of course, is key in soils in forming different aggregates that are important for aeration, for water flow, or so on. Here we were actually working with almost saturated sediments, so it was really a muddy muck or so on, almost devoid of texture, so to speak. But particle size, for example, is a major factor in enhancing different microbial communities. So on small versus large particles, you actually will find different organisms. So it's definitely a really important aspect to understand, and even more so when you think about soils that are not mixed, but where the soil structure becomes a key component of stimulating activities.
Thank you.
Okay. Irina Georgievna, you would like to ask questions? Yes, please, please.
Yes, I have a very short question. It's thank you for very interesting presentation, but is it safe and correct to use some microbial complexes, for example, in Ukraine, which are not typical for Ukrainian soils? Is it possible to take, you provide us with some this complex effective in your places, but will it be something like like introduction of invasive microbial species?
So, and this is actually a question that's hotly debated around the community in terms of introducing novel organisms. Now, the safer way, of course, would be to, if we need bioaugmentation, is to get indigenous microorganisms, stimulate them, grow them up. I mean, using the principles of how something could have been cultivated elsewhere. Or what's also been shown is doing the analysis to demonstrate that a close relative of that organism is already present in the soil around the area. And very often, I mean, that is the case. I mean, microbes easily get around the world. And so there's very few truly endemic species in there. And the selection, of course, is very strong. If they are pollutant degraders, and this is my view on it, is that once they've done degrading the chemical, they're going to die away because they don't have food anymore. But again, understanding the community that exists in a soil, I think, is an important first step, because that can also get ideas of what type of organisms, if seeding is needed, could be functioning.
Okay, thank you. Probably we need more research. But thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Max. And we will move to other presentations. So Professor Natalia Ryzhenko and Volodymyr Laptev, please, you have a floor.
Thank you so much. I try to be to the full screen if it's visible or not. I don't know. Is it okay?
Показ слайдів зробіть і зробіть на весь екран.
Is it full screen? It's full screen or not?
No.
In my screen, it's full.
It's full, but use, Наташа, візьміть показ слайдів, є опція, і там показ слайдів, правіше.
Okay, maybe now.
Ну, показ слайдів, бачите на верхній лінійці?
I did it.
Окей, включіть показ слайдів і з першого слайду запустіть. Тоді буде на весь екран і без сторонніх домішок.
Oh my God, okay.
Да. Назад. От показ слайдів, да. Бачите в лінійці?
Okay. I did it, it's okay.
Ви пройшли по ній тільки що курсором.
Ні. Так. Ось показ слайдів. Sorry, maybe I will not.
I'm sorry, press F5.
Yes, I think it will be effective. Up.
Ну, окей, якщо не виходить, порухались далі.
Yes, maybe. Sorry for a technical some, but anyway. Thank you a lot for your invitation. My name is Natalia Ryzhenko. Now I'm working in the University of Rennes in France. I will accompanied by my PhD student Volodymyr Laptev. He is in the School of Food Science and Environmental Health Technological University of Dublin. And our presentation is bioaccumulation of metals by wild species in urban localities in Ukraine. Phytoremediation, and some cases of the bioaccumulation in Kiev and Dnipro city. A couple of words about the importance. Metals such as lead, cadmium, nickel, etc., and others are released into the environment due to the urban and industrial pollution. These toxic metals accumulate in the soil and are taken up by plants, especially in the root system. Through the process of bioaccumulation and translocation, metals move from the soil to above ground plants part, which leads to the transfer along the food chain, affecting animals and humans. This poses serious issues of both ecosystem and public health, as long-term exposure can develop neurological and metabolic disorders.
Наташа, я перепрошую, слайди у вас переключаються чи ні? Чи ви не використовували переключення слайдів?
І я переключаю. Тобто воно не працює.
Ви не бачили, воно стояло на першому слайді. Зверніть увагу, будь ласка.
Нема в мене. Так. Can I use this format? Sorry, because I have the...
Окей, хай
Is it
буде.
visible or not now?
Yes, рухаємося далі.
Sorry. This poses serious risk to both ecosystem and public health, as long-term exposure can result in development in neurological and metabolic disorders. And additionally, the high levels of toxic metal can reduce plant biomass, negatively impacting vegetation cover and biodiversity, and for sure impact on the quality of food if we are talking about the crops. There are two key consequences of this process. First, metals are taken up by plants' roots from the soil, if it's like this, and this is the uptake phase. Then these elements are translocated to the background parts of plants, stem, leaves, etc., when they can either be harvested for remediation purpose or enter the food chain. So this is the two sides of this process. This dual pathway leads to two different outcomes. On the one hand, we see the positive potential for phytoremediation. Metal containing biomass can be collected and disposed, as it was mentioned before in other presentation. But on the other hand, there is the human health risk. Metals in crops, for example, as well as wild plants, because a lot of wild plants can be used like medicinal, so it should reduce nutritional quality and accumulate in consumers over time. Bioavailability refers to how easily metals in the environment can enter plants. To assess this, we use the plant uptake index as a quantitative indicator used to assess the plant's ability to absorb metal from the soil. It is calculated at a simple ratio between the concentration in plant and concentration in soil. A higher plant uptake index means the plant is more efficient at absorbing that metal from the soil. Translocation is the metal passing from roots to above ground parts of plant. And to measure how efficiently this happens, we use the translocation factor. Is the same, the ratio between concentration of metal in above ground parts to concentration of metal, for example, in roots. If the translocation factor is greater than 1, it means that the plants effectively transfer metal upward, which is important for phyto extraction, it's well known. And if less than 1, and in the conditions, then the bioaccumulation factor or plant uptake index more than 1, the plants should be used for the phytostabilization. And let's say about our studied cases. Here is the map shows the sampling sites in Kiev, namely in Holosivsky Park. It's one of the largest green areas in Kiev. We selected 4 experimental plots located in different parts of the park with a varying distance from roads and urban infrastructure, and for sure includes the green areas. There are sites where choosing to assess how location and environmental exposure affect the accumulation of metals in wild-growing plants. This slide presents data on the bioavailability of metals such as cadmium, zinc, lead, copper, cobalt, and nickel in various wild-growing plant species. Species like Empathian parviflora, Urtica dioica, Tussilaga farfara show high accumulation potential for several metals. These results suggest that common wild plants can be effective for the phytoremediation strategies, but on the other hand, they may also pose risk if used for human consumption as medicinal plants due to the transfer of toxic elements into the food chain. This table shows the plant uptake index for cadmium and lead in several wild-growing species. The highest values were recorded for Urtica dioica and Chelidonium intybus, followed by Empathian parviflora, indicating their strong ability to accumulate both cadmium and lead. Such species can be considered effective bioaccumulators for phytoremediation, especially in the contaminated urban environments. This slide summarizes the ranking of plants by the plant uptake index values for cadmium and lead. For cadmium, the top accumulators are Empathian parviflora, Urtica dioica, and Chelidonium intybus. For lead, Urtica dioica, Empathian parviflora again show the highest uptake potential. This slide shows the plant uptake index values for Urtica dioica and Chelidonium mice. It should be noted that these results were obtained in 2024 during the ongoing war in Ukraine, which underscores the urgency of developing effective phytoremediation strategy. And we try to compare what's happened after, during the war, when the war is starting, actually, and it was admitted that in soil, for example, the level of lead was slightly increased. But in this slide, we see that these two species that were selected in the 2024, sampled in the 2024, has the range of the accumulation, by accumulation. Here is the plant uptake index. And actually, we can see that this range is almost the same, but opposite about the translocation factor. The translocation factor values for Urtica dioica and Chelidonium mice showing how effectively metals move from roots into shoots. And we see that in Urtica dioica, the most actively translocated metals were cadmium, lead, and nickel, as well as for Chelidonium. But in the top for Urtica dioica, we see the cadmium and in phytoextraction. At the same time, the ability to retain zinc, copper, nickel, and manganese in the root zone makes the suitable for phytostabilization. And the map highlights the experimental plots where these metals were detected and confirming their relevance for use in specific urban location. This slide presents hierarchical clustering dendrograms that show the grouping of metals in soil based on their concentration available form of metals and possible sources. In Kiev, we see the wartime. In Dnipro, it was this soil sampled on 2021. And we see the difference between this diagram. In Kiev, we see that the copper, nickel, and cadmium are likely of anthropogenic origin. Zinc and lead may be linked to war-related contamination, while and iron are associated with the natural sources. In Dnipro, Metals are grouped in the clusters reflecting transport and in industry activities, as well as the local background pollution. This map showed these sampling sites in the urban area in Dnipro, where we studied bioaccumulation of metals in two widespread species, Ambrosia artemisiaefolia and Erigeron canadensis. The three plots are located at a varying distance from the city center and the sources of industrial zone, namely the battery manufacturing and waste battery recycling facilities were sampled. The idea was to compare the difference between the bioaccumulation capacities and assess finally again the level of the concentration level of the pollution in these sites. This diagram shows the plant uptake index values for Erigeron canadensis across the experimental plots in Dnipro. The species demonstrated a very high accumulation for zinc with a maximum of plant uptake index over 500 as we see, and significant uptake for lead and the copper. These results highlight the strong bioaccumulation potential for Erigeron canadensis and its suitability for phytoremediation in urban areas, I believe. This slide illustrated the translocation factor values for Erigeron canadensis across the urban plots in Dnipro. The highest TF values were observed for lead and zinc, up to almost 11 and 6, respectively, indicating effective metal transfer from roots to shoots. And here we see the some bioaccumulative properties of Erigeron canadensis due to the values of the pie charts show the proportion of different metals in the plant biomass from 3 sampling sites. According to the international criteria, we suggested that this species should be suggested like a hyper accumulator because it's over 1% of zinc or 0.1% of copper, chromium, lead in dry mass, high biomass production, actually, the ability to accumulate metals even at low concentration, and efficient translocation to the shoots. So we believe that maybe these species should be successfully used for the remediation, restoring these polluted soil in the after-war restoring. This slide shows the plant uptake index and translocation factor for Ambrosia artemisiaefolia in urban areas of Dnipro. The plant demonstrated extremely high accumulation, the same, of zinc and copper. As we see, the plant uptake index values exceeding for zinc 600 and TF values above 3. These results indicate that the Ambrosia artemisiaefolia is an efficient metal accumulator of the same and could be suggesting like a potential candidate for the phytoremediation. So, according to the results obtained in urban location in Kiev and Dnipro, several wild plant species such as Empatian parviflora, Urtica dioica, Caledonia mais, Erigeron canadensis, and Ambrosia artemisiaefolia demonstrated high levels of metal bioaccumulation and could be suggested like a potential candidate for the phytoremediation strategies, particularly for cadmium, chromium, lead, zinc, and copper. This suggested there's potential use in these strategies and can be useful, especially in the after-war restoration. Further research is essential to evaluate other species on the specific environmental condition to develop effective site-adapted remediation strategies. Such approach will be particularly relevant for the post-war recovery, we very hope on it, on contaminated urban and industrial areas in Ukraine, and and appropriate methods for the safe disposal of treatment of metal-enriched plant biomass must be developed to prevent secondary pollution. We should keep in mind this for sure. But as we heard today, there are a lot of ideas how to manage it. But anyway, we are very hope that it will be very useful for the post-war restoration. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for the technical problem.
Thank you very much, Professor Ryzhenko. Very interesting presentation. Dear colleagues, do you have questions? Please. Olena Kozak, you have a floor.
Yes, if you let. Thank you very much, Professor Ryzhenko, for the interesting presentations. I would ask you about the species which you chose for your research. Actually, the first part includes the forest species. Does it mean that you propose to use it for the remediation of forest ecosystems?
Actually,
And
yes.
how
Actually, it's
and how
most
it can be
appropriate, yes.
practically done?
Sorry?
How it can be done practically, because it's common.
Actually, this is the good question. I believe that there are a lot of how to say. I believe that we can see from the presentation of Viktor Ivanovich, we have a lot of destroyed forest areas. Maybe it will be useful in this case for sure, but as I correctly understand, your question is about the adaptation of the special conditions.
Yeah, for example,
Of the,
does it mean that we should to
exactly
use like seeds
condition of the
seeds?
forest, for example, or something?
Okay. And if you let, I have another questions about another two species which you used for monitoring of bioaccumulation in Dnipro city, about Rigeron canadensis and Artemisia, Ambrosia artemisifolia. It is invasive species and also dangerous for the people with allergy. Why you decide to choose these two species for your research, and if you include in your research perhaps some other species for comparison?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, before our study, we studied a lot about this potential capacity of these plants, and there are a lot of publication about the high bioavailability capacity of ambrosia. And all the species are invasive, as I correct remember, and all the species, and even in the case of ambrosia, is for sure is very allergic, but nevertheless it's very effective in the bioaccumulation. So we have the two. How to say? We have the under the how to say, between the two ways of the choice. To use it like a high bioaccumulator, or maybe how to say, don't use it because of the allergic properties. But anyway, maybe in some sites when we have not so many, how to say, a big population load, not so much people near. Maybe it could be used, but anyway, this is the choice. Yes, it's not it's not absolutely maybe good candidate, but it's we discovered that it's very good bioaccumulator anyway.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any more questions? Natalia, as well, very simple questions, which I asked Professor Hoglan. After bioaccumulation.
I have a question there. You showed Chicoria, the blue flower. Can you tell a little bit more about Chicoria and the possibility for that? It has been used during Christ's time for instead of coffee and so on, but what's the effect more of it? Does it have medical effects and so on?
Natalia disappeared. Dear William, probably for some technical problems, Natalia Ryzhenko disappeared. She probably will join us later. She's waiting in the waiting room. But she didn't hear your comments and your question.
Very sorry, it's a technical problem.
Yes, but
you
Professor
want-
Fogland asked
you
me
show a
questions. Listen
picture.
again.
Sorry.
A picture about cicoria, and I wonder if you can tell a bit more about that plant. I mean, I know that it can be used during Christ time instead of coffee and so on, but does it have other effects and it's good, and any medical effects or something like that? Can you tell a little bit more about cicoria?
Yes, thank you so much. It's very interesting. Actually, yes. So maybe I will show. Actually, Cicorium, it's very good for the bioaccumulation of lead. So it should be dangerous because I don't know. I don't know how it's used to be in Europe, but in Ukraine it's very traditional, like a medicinal plant. Not just only instead of the coffee, but it's very used by people traditional, like in the teas, etc. So, but unfortunately, there is no any limits for the medicinal plants, like for example, for crops or some products for wheat, barley, etc., like traditional crops. That's why this is the problem. But anyway, the bioavailability and translocation is always like two ways, two consequences of this of the process. On the other hand, it's very good for the bioaccumulation, so it should be like used like a phytoremediator. But on the other hand, it should be harmful because you can consume it. So for Ukraine, in my opinion, it's one of the problems. Actually, these results were began time ago, 10 years ago, because of the interesting what we have inside the wild plants, which can be used like medicinal in Ukraine, because it's very traditional. There are a lot of practice to collect the medicinal plants in forest, but there are no any limits for metals, for example, as well for the other pollutants. So, but it was to turn out that these plants can be used also for like a bioaccumulators because of the high capacity of bioaccumulation, for example, of lead. That all. Well, but anyway, I think maybe it should to be deeper in this topic, because Cicorium is a real interesting plant. And maybe it will be used even after in the after war or restoration of soil.
For me, it's an interesting plant. There was the Ukrainian group that I mentioned visit me in 2007 that opened the eyes for me for this cicoria.
For yes, for tea, for coffee, for different consumption. Yes, it's very popular actually. Maybe in Sweden the same, I don't know.
In earlier days.
Okay, thank you very much, dear colleagues. Natalia Alexandrovna, Volodymyr, thank you very much for your interesting work and for nice presentation. We have one more presentations for today program. Ruslan Gavrilyuk. Ruslan, are you in? Okay,
Yes.
you have a floor.
Thank you so much, very much. I will try
And
to
you will
share
talk
my
about
screen.
potential hotspots for applications of bioremediation. Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Please.
I'll try to share. Please let me know if everything is well. I
Yeah,
hope
it's okay. It's okay.
Perfect. I will start. Well, first of all, I represent Institute of Geological Science of National Academy of Science of Ukraine, and also non-governmental organization National Ecological Center of Ukraine that is involved in Roots project, and I very glad to have opportunity to present some our research during this important and very interesting meeting. First of all, our institute has a long experience to investigate oil pollution sites, and I will present some of them during my presentation. And I hope it helps us to choose some or maybe one of some of this hotspot for future for our next research and applied phytoremediation application, phytoremediation measures in Ukraine. And some couple of words about situation in Ukraine in general. Oil polluted, has become a global problem in recent decades in the world. Ukraine, which has a long history of oil extraction and widespread use of oil products, faces serious challenges related to oil pollution, which have been significantly rise by Russia aggression. Now we know about hundreds of oil pollution sites in Ukraine, and maybe their actual number in the thousands. Although these sites are of different sizes, and not all of them are very large, but all of them pose a threat to our environment, ecosystem, biodiversity, and population as well. In most cases, pollution is localization in soil and groundwater. It's the two main parts of our problem with oil pollution of the environment. The pollution is caused by following activities you can see on the slide: oil extraction, storage, transportation of oil, industrial activities, military activities, and Russian aggression as well. Main sources of pollution are related to some facilities like oil production area, oil depots, military sites, air bases, and airports as well, petrol station, and many others. Over the past 30 years, our Institute of Geological Sciences, has investigated many large-scale oil pollution sites Particularly special attention has been paid for former Soviet air bases, and their activities resulted in long-term significant losses of oil products, which led to the formation of a layer of liquid oil product on the groundwater surface. Example of such sites are Pryluk and Mykolaiv air base, as well as Uzin and Uman, and many other military facilities of the Soviet past. The area of contamination at these sites reach tens of hectares. It's very big areas. Contaminated soil can be up to depths of 10, 15 or even more meters. The layer of liquid petroleum products has reached a thickness of several meters. Such hotspot will pose long-term threats to the underground hydrosphere, to the groundwater, as well as surface water bodies that connected with groundwater. They also cause hazard to biodiversity and ecosystem. Definitely, we have investigated a number of pollution sites in the Kyiv region as well. For example, Borispol Airport, the main airport in Ukraine, in our capital, military oil depot in Kyiv, and other. We realized some project with different source of funding on these sites. In my presentation, I will take a closer look at two sites in Kyiv region, where pollution is not only formed in the geological environmental, but also affect to ecosystem. These are the Kalynivka site you can see on the slide, and Bila Tserkva site. Formation of pollution at the Kalynivka site was caused by destruction of oil depot. Victor Ivanovich Karamushka mentioned about it, about destruction of this oil depot as a result of Russia missile attack. Formation of pollution at the Bila Tserkva site has more longer history. It is associated with the military aircraft repair plan in Bila Tserkva as part of Soviet air base. It was one of the biggest air base in not only Ukraine, in Soviet Union in general. Next, a couple of words about Kalynivka site. Kalynivka oil depot is located approximately 20 kilometers south of Kyiv. it was destroyed in March 2022, and destroyed by pressure cruise missile attacks from Black Sea aquatory. The missile hit two missiles hit large vertical tanks. About 10,000 tons of fuel, petrol and diesel was burned and leaked into the ground. Concrete protective cover at the tank site and concrete barrier around this site where tank was located. Tanks was located were destroyed during this missile attack. As a result, oil products leaked into the soil at the oil depot site and area around oil depot, where they spread as a result of the spill. Infiltration of liquid oil products probably led to their reaching the groundwater surface. The contamination then spread in the direction of groundwater flow to the small river that affected by contamination. However, it is possible that in this case were conditional, some special condition for rapid transport of contamination. We assumed that the rapid flow of oil product from the depot area to the water body occurred through underground pipe that was part of irrigation system. This resulted in large-scale pollution of the river that draining the groundwater. Our recent surveys has shown that pollution continues to have impact of the ecosystem, this small river and area around the river. Pollution is visible on the water surface. You can see on this image. And on the left bank of the river, where contaminated underground stream drains, oil products are also clearly visible. Big section of the river bank, at least 300, maybe 400 meters, is heavily polluted. Bottom sediment, I show you video. Bottom sediment are also contaminated from from bottom of the river. Oil slicks float to the surface. You can see it on this video. Last year in 2024, our Institute of Geological Science and Kyiv Mohyla Academy together conduct survey of this site along the river bank. The contaminated area was outlined. You see the polluted soil on images. and this soil is saturated with oil product and has changed color. You can see the special, I would say, gray navy color changed by oil product pollution. Some persons have even taken liquid oil products from shallow wells in this area. Within this area, oil product continue to leak into surface water, and a sharp smell of oil product continues to be observed here. And we believe that this site is appropriate for phytoremediation measures. And some slide about our second site, Біла Церква site. Біла Церква is a big industrial center in Kyiv region, and the contaminated area is located within the Alexandria Arboretum, Alexandria Dendro Park, national protected area. Source of this pollution was former military aircraft plant. Currently, eco-industrial park being created on the territory of this former plant. Priority is to restore the polluted ecosystem of the Alexandria Dendro Park, which is one of the most beautiful, famous, and best in our country. It is important to emphasize that this area has been studied since the early 19th last century, but the problem of pollution has not yet been resolved. Oil products that got into the geological environment in Soviet times continue to reach the cascade of ponds in the Dendro Park. And you can see the contamination area in this map. This is due to the extremely high volumes of liquid oil products, losses, and large-scale pollution area that stretching over maybe 8 of 900 meters and discharging into cascade of ponds with Dendro Park. You can see the polluted pond in this slide. And our research server confirms that active phase of contamination, key phase of migration of contamination, new wells have been discovered in the area for oil sampling. We don't know who drilled this wells, but it is indicator of contamination for us. For the last 5-6 years, Institute of Geological Science has been conducting regular monitoring of the state of pollution, which proves the intake of oil product into water body. of Dendra Park. The result of our research have been published in some publication. You can see references on this slide. And in our opinion, the use of phytoremediation measures at area of discharge of contaminated groundwater flow is reasonable. This would reduce the inflow of pollution into water bodies and create biobarriers to prevent next further pollution. It is all for my side. Thank you for your attention.
Ruslan, thank you very much for your presentations. Okay, dear colleagues, do you have questions to Ruslan?
Yes, I do have. May I-
Valery Mikhailenko, please.
Yeah,
Happy to see you.
me too. So, dear colleagues, we investigated also this area around the Bila Tserkva. And my question to Mr. Havriluk, did you study another contamination? Because it is a complex system, and we found the chromium and other heavy metals in this area. So do you know something about that?
Yes, I know we investigate this contamination with heavy metals as well. It was in the early 2000s
It's the beginning of this
2000.
session, let's say.
Yeah.
It was more than 20 years ago, but we studied the contamination of heavy metals, and we see the ground, soil, and groundwater and surface water were contaminated by many heavy metals. No, first of all by chromus.
Thank you. Possibly to other people, just let them know that 400 meters down the river bank, there is a water supply system of Bila Tserkva area, of Bila Tserkva town. So it is very dangerous and needs to be protected. So thank you very much. This is really nice. It's really nice location for future.
This hotspot really impact of the Ross River. Ross River is one of the biggest river in Kyiv region and very important source for water supply in many cities in Kyiv region. Thank you, Valery, for your question.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, any more questions? Okay, who would like to provide comments to entire list of presentations to the topic of this workshop? Nobody. Okay. I would like just to have a few comments. Irina Georgievna, okay, please.
Just few words about, it's really interesting to speak about phytoremediation, and actually I have some experience on phytoremediation's research on contaminated with radionuclides soils after Chernobyl, in Chernobyl zone, and it's effective methods. Some plants can accumulate 2-4 times more concentrated elements in their biomass in comparison with soils. But the main problem was with the sharing the experience of phytoremediation methods was how to work with contaminated biomass and how to utilize it. What to do with this contaminated? Actually, if it's radioactive contamination. So it's for any of projects on phytoremediation, we need to think about this problem. How to utilize, disposal of this mess.
Actually, it was my questions to Natalia Alexandra, because I asked Professor Hogland, and Natalia probably knows this approach. I'm pretty sure that phytoremediation could be very effective if you have organic pollutions. In this case, we don't need to treat biomass because everything is going on by biological processes. But as regards to metal compounds, so it's a little bit, maybe not a little bit, but it's different approach. Natalia Alexandrovna, can you provide some comments regarding what to do with biomass after bioaccumulations of metals from soil or from water?
Actually, Viktor Ivanovich, it's not my focus, but because my focus was to research how it's possible to bioaccumulate, to discover which species are most appropriate for this. But this is this technical actually question. But as it was mentioned before, and in the literature it mentioned, it could be transferred to the ash. But the question, what we should do with this ash, you see? So this is the multi-steps process about the disposal of this, how to say, phytoremediation waste, let's say. Actually, there were a lot of information about the utilization of the worms. For example, in the Indian colleagues wrote about a lot about this. The same question, what we should do after. But in the case of the plants, I think the most efficient, in my opinion, this is the transfer to the ash. So it was mentioned about the incineration. So maybe I'm in this side. I'm mostly in this side about the incineration, but it should be developed some technique for the utilization after.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. But for radioactive biomass, it was not used incineration.
Exactly. For radioactive, it's not possible
really
at all. Yes,
main
exactly.
problem
So
for
there are,
us.
yes, for radioactive, I think it's most difficult to do something because it's actually radioactive. It's highly dangerous. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. For metals, for organic compounds, it's more easy, especially for organic compounds, because it's destroyed very easily to the simple compounds, chlorine, nitrogen, oxygen, etc., etc. Yes, but for radioactive, I think it should be very special something.
Any more comments?
Yes, I have some comment on it.
Please, Valery.
The Roots project has a specific unit from Lithuania Energetic Institute. Inna Pietak and Nastya Sholokhova are working on this issue. They would like to know, and they are learning, what shall we do with the waste, with this kind of waste. So possibly they know some answer about waste contamination products and the phytoremediation technologies and their ending, because each technology produces waste, and even environmentally sound technology also producing the waste. So they are oriented and they are working on these final products and what shall we do with that. So possibly we can ask them. And and get the response. But this is really very interesting and very, very important issue for phytoremediation and for the project. Thank you.
May I have a comment also? Yes, I mean, I mentioned then ash from waste incineration plants and so on that we can use. And you have technologies today to use the ash from such incinerators and so on. But besides that, it has been common to use the ash in the forest. And if it's not too big amount and so on, then it's possible to spread it in the forest as the nutrients and so on. That has been done. So in limit amount, then it could be used in a forest. And then, yeah, the activities, phytoremediation activities start in the forest also. Thank you.
I'm very in, if you don't mind, I'm very in with this remark, because maybe the ash could be transferred for the kind of the fertilizer, because it's very known. No, it's very known that the, for example, some types of soil in Ukraine, it's very lack of the micro elements, ultra micro elements, and they need it. So maybe it should be transferred to the kind of fertilizer, but for sure with the absolutely known limits, and for sure with the clever technologies. That's my opinion.
What may I also?
Yes.
comment?
Sorry, Valerie.
Yeah.
Sorry, please, Valerie.
Yes, okay. Just to remind that in former time we use some technologies like producing bricks and other ceramics can be used like a decorative elements on the streets. But in this case, we put a small amount of this contaminated ash into the bricks. So one possible way is also be like this one. Thank you.
Yes, it's interesting that you said bricks also, because we work with this bottom sediment together with the municipality, and the municipality is working with a company that makes bricks from this bottom sediment that we have cadmium and arsenic and so on. So this is a possibility and so on. And if I go back to the ash and so on, then I want again to mention these bank account cells. When you have ash of high metal of a certain amount, for instance, copper, you can put that ash into such a bank account cell and leave it for the next generation to excavate and recycle, because we need to go deeper and deeper into the ground and soil to get metals out from the cliff and so on. So that can be valuable for the future. So think about this with bank account cells. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, we've got alarm signal about threats from air ballistic attack. I would like to talk to my Kiev colleagues. Please make sure that you are in safe conditions. Please be careful. And I would like to ask everybody to open your cameras. We would like to make a photo for our records. Please do it. More and more, please. Okay, smile, please, in spite of alarm signal, please smile. And one more. Okay, thank you very much. So those who are taking care about your safety, please do it. But we may continue our discussions. I still hope that everything would be okay. I would like to draw attention to point out about specific of these two sites, which already presented by Ruslan Gavrilyuk. All of them, regretfully, yes, then they can be used for applications of phytoremediation technologies. But the problem is that all of them, it's a site with continuing pollution, because oil products, hydrocarbons are entered into groundwater. And this is the problem. And in this regard, I would like to ask questions to Max Hegblom. Dear Max, do you have experience or do you know how it's possible to use microorganisms for deteriorations of organic pollutant underground, in underground waters? Do you have such experience or know about such cases?
So I have not worked in these systems, but definitely the process of stimulating subsurface environments has been done extensively. So different ways of aerating the soil or pumping in nutrients have been done. So there's actually quite a lot of experience with these type of subsurface remediation.
And in these cases, I suppose microorganisms have been used, yeah?
Yeah, but typically it's providing the nutrients and stimulating indigenous populations in the soil.
It's aerobic microorganisms or anaerobic?
Both have been tried. Aerobic has been more successful, but there's been interest also in anaerobes. But they're more limited often in their metabolic capability.
Okay. Anybody would like to provide comments? Actually, we discussed quite interesting topics. So we know that there are problems. This problem is pollution of by organic pollutants, first of all, hydrocarbons of some areas, soil and water bodies, coastal zone in Ukraine. And I believe we don't know about all cases, all incidents, but I believe that there are lots of such hotspots. In this regards, I probably would like to ask our colleague from Mykolaiv, Ina Timchenko, Diana Krasinska. Maybe you know, maybe you are working with such sites in your region because you are very close to front line. Ina, Diana. Okay. William, would you please provide your comments to our event, and we will go to conclusions.
Yes, I'm very happy that we can come together, so many experts on this important subject. And I hope also we can work together and create new projects. And under the discussion here, I hope we can do that. We have a lot of interesting areas and so on. And I think also we can have an exchange here of information. You have shown papers you have written and so on. And I want myself to show, I don't know if you can see this. This is an earlier Interreg project, South Baltic. It's called BAPR and Baltic Phytoremediation. And we made a guideline for phytoremediation. And you can find that on the net. And there is a lot of basic knowledge about phytoremediation. I don't know if you can see it and so on, but BAPR and then Baltic Phytoremediation and guidelines.
Too far.
And you see that this is a lot of problems related to oil and oil pollution and that how can we solve that in big scale? I mean, many of us as researchers are working in the laboratory and pilot scale, but how can we make this in a big scale? And in the end, we come to economy of this. So you have economy behind it. So, I mean, in Ukraine, you need to make phytoremediation in big scale and during sometimes long periods. We see here that we also have the deep pollutants of oil up to 10, 15 meters. And then we don't have plants that have so long roots. I mean, down to more than 3 meters. It's impossible. I mentioned these cereals, some of these old types of cereals that have long roots to so long as 2-3 meters. So how do we solve that in a proper way? And then I also want you all to think about this, what I have been saying about these protection zones, these stripes zones along rivers and to protect the drinking water sources and maybe also around pollutants, so big pollutant sources, and also farmlands. A farmland is leaking and downstream, then you can also have these stripes. And I want you to think about what kind of plants and how do we design these stripes in the best way. I mean, you have ideas about what plants you can have with different types of roots and combination of plants. So I should be happy to get ideas from you. How do we design it? And also, how do we motivate the farmers, for instance, to have reserve a land around the fields to take up the nutrients and also pesticides and other pollutants and from this area. So it's always about the economy in the end. And I mean, in Ukraine, you have so huge areas. How can we use the phytoremediation in an effective and economic way? Thank you. You are muted.
Victor Ivanovich, may I say something because I apologize, I stepped back for a few minutes. My name is Diana, I'm from Mykolaiv region, I live in Mykolaiv, I associate professor Phytoremediation Black Sea National University, and we work with Victor Karamushka, with Inna Timchenko, with Ruslan Gavriluk. And if we say about potential areas for remediation in Mykolaiv region, I think the entire Mykolaiv region is probably suitable for us, especially the villages that border the Kherson region. And we have result of our research in Pervomaiska community, 2 village, Galitsinivska community, 3 village, and we see a lot of heavy metal, petroleum in soil, but these villages, there are places where the mining has been carried out, but the situation there is still very dangerous, and I think we can say only perspective this area of remediation in the future, but when we can start doing remediation, I can't see now, because it's very dangerous situation in this territory, like only territory in Ukraine.
Especially you are more close to front lines, that's why it's more difficult for you. Okay, thank you very much, Diana. Dear colleagues, anybody would like to provide some other comments? Okay, probably I have to say thanks a lot to all who joined our workshop, who contributed to discussions. I wish you peaceful time. I wish you peace and victory.
Thank you so much.
And let's think about what we can do with our damaged country, with our damaged environment. Thanks to all. And I would like to ask colleagues who did presentations, please stay a little bit. We will discuss some other issues. William, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I think we have forgotten a very important part. I mean, we need to continue this, and we need to make more research. You see, we have wonderful researchers here. I've seen your laboratories and so on. For the future, we need more research money, and we need to find sources for that. I mean, the European Union is one and so on, and we need to make application, and so all of you need to look for options of getting more money. And I should be happy if we could select a leader for this, that take the action to help to find and organize, so we can write application to get more money. So do we have any such good person that is ambitious for us to get new research project in this area? Is it anybody that is prepared to do that work? And maybe we should create a small working group for that. I don't know what you are saying of that. Are you interested, first of all, of this, and who could take the lead?
William, thank you very much for this idea. And actually, we are already such group. We already try to do something, to try to look around and to see what kind of funding institutions can be available for our applications. And we are thinking about possible project and already started. But I will appreciate everybody involving in this process. So if you are interested, just let me know, and we will discuss some ideas which would be relevant for such cooperative project. Okay, there are lots of technical issues and organizational issues, but let's think, let's start, let's do, and we will find appropriate solution for any reasonable idea. Colleague? Okay, thank you very much to all of you. Special thanks to presenters, You did great job. I'm really happy that I heard so nice and informative presentations. Thank you very much.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Victor,
Thank you.
for your input and for the leading of this conference. Thank you very much. It was very fruitful and very useful, and I'm looking for the extension. So,
Colleague from Latvia University. It's uploading. Okay, thank you very much. No, okay.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Ні, презентацію ми не завершуємо. Я попрошу. As usually, it's a usual practice when we are working with our students and working online. Some of them just closed camera and I don't know when to sleep or when to lunch and so on. So I suspect that some of our participants are doing the same. But anyway, dear colleagues, Max, Natalia, William, Ruslan, I really appreciate your contributions. And I will not leave you as it is. I will trouble you because I suppose that we will generate some good ideas for our cooperation and for our next steps. And let's consider this workshop as a first initial steps of doing something more important, more interesting, more productive, keeping in mind our opportunities, our capacity, our possibilities, and so on. Thank you very much to all of you.
No, thank you. And I'm wishing you all the best and yeah, a safe time. And there's going to be a lot of, I think, questions of how to go to large scale implementation. And that's going to be really more of an engineering question than the basic sciences. And I think that's looking at what would be the good partners in that is going to be an important step.
Definitely. But first of all, we have to provide scientific justification, scientific background for such technical solutions. Yeah. And this is our area. We can do something this important. Okay. At this point, I have to close our workshop. Again, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Have a happy Easter, which is very soon. Very soon. And let's stay in touch.
Yes. And you stay safe.
Yes. And just one more question. All presentations which you have sent me, can I share these presentations among broad public, among our students, or upload or on our sites to disseminate this important issue? If you don't mind, I will do it. If you have some restrictions, just let me know. It's okay?
Yes.
Okay.
No restriction.
No, thanks. Good luck.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.